Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin wassalatu wassalamu ala asyrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin wa ala alihi washabihi ajma'in. So we're all here today for the last of its series in Ramadan of the webinar session, and particularly this one is a webinar session on ERTL and assessment. Okay, so in order to get the barakah from Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, shall we all begin with Al-Fatiha? Amin. Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh again. Welcome everyone. We've got 158 participants so far, but this is just on the Zoom, but probably there'll be more, or there are more in the FB session. Okay. All right, so I am tasked with moderating this session. There'll be 4 speakers altogether. So let me just begin with an overview or a little background of these webinar sessions that lead to today. I think when we started the MCO in March, there were a series of webinars and sessions led by CPD in order to prepare all of us for our online teaching. So there were sessions by different people on how to plan our lessons for online, as well as platforms that you can use for online teaching and learning. But after that, there were a series of questions that were asked, because after preparing for our teaching materials, of course, the natural thing to happen is to plan for the assessment. So starting in early May, so I think CPD has organized a number of sessions on the assessment issues. Okay, so which began with, and when the document on ERTL was out, the first session on assessment was done by Dr. Zainurin, because a lot of questions came about how to plan for a final examination. So, no, sorry, I started it. So the first session was me, and then followed by Dr. Zainurin, and then Dr. Fehab. And then yesterday was Prof. Nurida. So today we have a very fortunate to have our Deputy Director of Academic and Industrial Linkage, Mr. Sarudin, and we have Dr. Lihana, the Director of KCA. Is she here already? And then Prof. Ida Madiha, the Dean of CPS, and Associate Professor Dr. Gary from AMAD. Okay, so if you look at the profile of the people who are here, as compared to those who have been doing the webinar series in the last 2 months, now these are people who are very important in terms of what questions that came out lately in the webinar series, procedures. So we've dealt with policy, we've dealt with know-how, how to do this and how to do that, and what to do. But there are changes that will involve procedures. So that is why we're very fortunate, we're very grateful that amidst a very busy schedule, Professor Prof. Ida, Dr. Lihana, and Dr. Gary agreeable to do this with all of us. Okay, I will just give an overview of what were some of the issues related to assessment that crop up in the session of Dr. Zainurin, Dr. Feham, Prof. Nolida, and I. I think in the beginning, one of the first questions that, or one of the issues that we all have to go through, is to think of what to replace for our final examination, because most of our undergraduate courses have got 40% of the final examinations. So therefore, we've dealt with the topics in terms of principles of assessment. So we've dealt issues related to what's the difference between our final examination and the other assessment that we have for the course. So we have dealt with the issue of traditional assessment versus the continuous assessment, which are the alternative assessment. Okay, so Dr. Zainurin had a very interesting session in which he gave us a choice, and lay down all the principles regarding if you want to have an examination still for your final exam, for your 40% final, there is an open book option, okay? But there are principles behind an open book in which you will keep the spirit of final examination. But that is not the only choice. The fact is that because we have the ERTL document, we are allowed to do changes to the document without going through Senate and MQA and all the necessary, you know, if you have to go, if you do those changes in the ordinary semester. Okay, so in other words, changes can be done to your course outline as far as assessment is concerned, uh, just for the period of this ERTL. And some of us are probably still not so sure uh, what exactly, what exactly, or what was the border, or what's the what is ERTL perhaps. So that is one question that probably Prof. Isalji will need to answer later. Okay. And so final examination is just, replacing final examination. We've got like more than 20 questions on how to change the final examination to uh, open book. Yeah. And yesterday, Prof. Nolida mentioned about if you still want to keep your examination oriented assessment of the 40%, so perhaps the online platform can be used. So Dr. Feham shared the possibility of using the H5P as well as using our iTaLink platform. But there are limitations to using the platform, right? So in my session and in the Prof. Nolida's session, uh, we have enlightened the community that perhaps you may want to get away from examination for your 40%, because there are other types of assessment that you are able to do for as long as, so this is a principle of assessment, you keep to your CLOs. Yeah. So the ERTL allow us to do changes to your course outline, but not to the extent of changing the outcomes of your course or course learning outcomes. Yeah, so that's the boundary. So having said that, so keeping the CLOs intact, you can have alternative assessments. Okay, you can redesign your 40% into different types of assessment. And thank you, Dr. Zainurin. He gave us a few options of how to split or spread your 40% to both the alternative assessment and keep some to the traditional assessment of having exams, but probably little quizzes. Okay? So you can have probably out of the 40%, 20% quizzes, and another 20% you spread it into the other types of assessment. Okay. All right. So some of the questions that have cropped up over the FBE and then in the series related to procedures. Yeah. It's like how can we how much changes can you do? How much changes can you do in the teaching and learning and assessment in the ERTL period? Okay, and then if it says that, oh yes, you can do the changes, but who keeps track of the changes? Who do we report to? Is it at individual level? You can just do whatever changes that you want to your course and then that's it. Okay, or is it at the departmental level, the kuliah level? So who keeps steps of what? And then who keeps steps of what is the right principles that we follow, having done all those changes? Okay, so we have impressed, or we have mentioned in all the sessions that, because I attended all the sessions, that despite all the changes that you can do that suit your course, we have to make sure that we still follow the principles behind both teaching and learning as well as the principles of assessment. Okay, so with that, I think I've taken 10 minutes of the time. I would like to, get the ball rolling by getting the first speaker, Professor Isaji. to enlighten us with the issues that are relevant in the ERTL. Okay, tafadhal, Professor Haji.
Thank you, Prof. Ainul. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Prof. Ainul, the moderator, also Dean of Kuliah of Education, Prof. Ida, the Dean of CPS, Assistant Professor Dr. Gary, Director of AMAD, Assistant Professor Dr. Lihana, Director of KCA, and all our fellow colleagues. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. When we were listening to Prof. Ainul just now, wow, there were so many questions. I'm not sure whether we are able to answer all the questions now. But let me talk about emergency remote teaching learning a little bit, the big picture, the ecosystem first. So basically, I think you have the document in front of you. It's a terminology to describe a delivery mode that is undertaken in time of crisis, such as the COVID-19 pandemic. And during this time, it does not support our regular on-campus face-to-face instruction. Basically, for our university, we are using blended learning. So blended learning, right now, the ratio is about 70% face-to-face and 30% online learning. Our target is 50-50. Hopefully, after the pandemic, we will be able to achieve that. So suddenly, during this pandemic, we are unable to fulfill that 70% at 70-30 ratio of face-to-face and online learning. So we have to do something. So we have to shift to this emergency remote teaching learning. Basically, it is the upgraded of the distance open learning. But because of the crisis, we call it emergency. So what is ODL? I think most of us have heard of this. So basically, it's a learning opportunity that is flexible in terms of access. It has been going on for the past, 20-30 years. OUM is very good at it. So it uses various modes of independent learning, very flexible, very accessible, and multimodal, uses different modes. It gives opportunity for education to be accessible anytime and anywhere, and uses various means. So it allows or it frees learners from the constraint of time and location. As I said just now, it uses various delivery system and resources for independent self-learning. You can use SMS, you can use email, you can use your iTalim, you can use your Google Classroom, you can use Padlet, and so many things that you can use. Even to a point where if you don't have all those, you can use your own manual or your notes. You can copy the notes and send it through mail. That is as low tech as you can get. So basically, emergency remote teaching learning is a temporary measure, temporary emergency measure to address the needs to continue the teaching and learning process in light of the current pandemic. A more long-term approach is to strategically enhance our blended learning. So that's our blended learning to the ratio of 50-50 face-to-face and online learning elements in order to create the best educational experience for students and lecturers. So we are using ERTL during this crisis, and inshallah by next year we should be able to achieve this. For your information, even for avid online learning enthusiasts, they will attest to the importance of face-to-face learning. We can never replace that. At the same time, we must incorporate e-learning. This is the way forward. It is the future, and this is why we use blended learning as our methodology. All lecturers need to know the timeline. I'm going to talk about the timeline right now. So my colleagues, Prof. Ida, Dr. Gary, Dr. Lihana will be talking about the technicalities. But let me talk about the timeline. To ensure that no students are left behind, that's our policy. Kuliahs have started engaging students to identify the ones who could not participate in our ERTL or online learning while they are at home now. So the first thing that we need to know is that who are the students who are unable to participate, because we should not leave any students behind in this mode. Who are the students? I think Dr. Gary is doing that. The disadvantaged students, their names, their specifics and issues that they are facing right now. All this information have to be submitted to AMAD. All kuliahs need to submit all this information to AMAD by the 22nd of May. I think 22nd of May is this coming Wednesday. Today is Tuesday. Maybe in Thursday, if I'm not mistaken. So that's the first part, submitting everything to AMAD. regarding the specific students by the 22nd of May. Then, between 1st of June to 7th of June, this is after Raya, all lecturers are to conduct trial runs or dry runs of synchronous and asynchronous class sessions with their students. This is the 1 week period that we give all lecturers to do that with the students. So most students and all lecturers are not on campus during this time. So they are doing this at their own residences. So discretion on the part of the lecturer is advised for assignment submission during this period. So use your own discretion. There should be no graded assignments, quizzes, examinations, a virtual presentation and the likes during this period of 1 week. So part of the dry run or the trial run include informing our students on the way our classes are conducted and identifying students who have problems. Even though Dr. Gary have identified these students who have problems with our ERTL, but we still need to find out who are the students who have these problems. Whether they have lack of access to devices or internet or learning space at home. We want to make sure that there are no students who are left behind. So we have to identify our students who have these problems. And inshallah, if authorized by MKN, only authorized by MKN, these disadvantaged students will be allowed to return to campus so that they can utilize online facilities. Because if we cannot help them, if they do not have computers, they do not have Wi-Fi, how are they going to go for our ERTL mode? And if we are able to convince MKN, if they are able to return to campus, then they can use the online facilities in the Mahala. So this Mahala also must have good internet connectivity. However, these disadvantaged students can return to campus only from Wednesday, 10th of June. Remember, during the 1st to 7th of June, that is our dry run, a trial run, but the students can only return on the 10th of June to Sunday, 14th of June. That's the period, Wednesday to Sunday. Because the 15th of June will be the first day of our formal synchronous sessions. That is the formal session that will be graded. So this will be disadvantage. This will be for disadvantaged or selected students. Meaning to say that for face-to-face, they are on campus, they have to do lab work, they have to do practicum, and also disadvantaged students, they'll be on campus during this time. To use the university's facilities, is basically the Wi-Fi in the Mahala. Okay, class sessions. Yeah, class sessions may continue until the end of the scheduled exam period. So I'm talking about the commencement of the exam is from Monday, 3rd of August until 16th of August. That's about 2 weeks. That's the normal period of the examination. During this time, from the 3rd of August until the 16th of August, there's no centralized sit-in exam. No centralized sit-in exam. So you have to schedule your own exam. And students are allowed to defer. These are other things that you need to know also if the students ask about this. Students are allowed to defer his or her study for this semester by applying for a leave of absence at their respective kuliah. So the kuliah has to handle this. For PG students, however, this will be uncounted leave of absence. So Prof. Ida knows about this. Uncounted leave of absence. Fees paid for the semester will be brought forward to the following semester. The students need to know this if they are going for this mode. That is, they are going for the uncounted leave of absence. Students also allowed to drop the face-to-face courses if they wish so, without incurring any penalty. We have approved selected programs and courses for face-to-face mode for students to come back to campus. You can refer to the guidelines in Appendix 6. Some of these courses or programs are from the Kuliah of Architecture, Kuliah of Engineering, Kuliah of Nursing, and a few other programs. And the rest, those who have not received this approval, must be done on ERTL mode. And there's no online option for students for face-to-face mode. I mentioned just now, those who come back to campus to do face-to-face, there's no online option for students for face-to-face mode. What's the way forward here as far as the ministry is concerned? How long is it going to be like this, the CMCO, and how are we going to prepare for it? Basically, for June, the postgraduate students who are in research mode, who are in need of specific research on campus, they are allowed to begin in June. That has been given the authority, the permission by MKN, I think 2 or 3 days ago. Our target right now, as far as KPT and the public universities are concerned, will be to allow semester or final year students or postgraduate diploma and bachelor degree courses students to come and do their specialized practical programs in July. That's our target. And then our target in August will be for semester or final year students who have no access to the necessary or non-conducive environment for the implementation of online teaching learning. So by August, we target that these students to come back, but we can do it early if MCAN allows that. But that is the proposal from the ministry. And also for special needs students and for foundation programs and etc. Our target is for them to come back to campus during the semester 1 academic session in October. This is the target that we are working on with the ministry and also with MKN. I mentioned just now that who are the students that require our attention. They are ill-equipped with internet, they do not have laptops, they have to pay for their own data bank and etc. And maybe they have challenging home environment. Basically, if you have 5 or 6 children and you have only one laptop, it's quite difficult to work on that. And basically, those are the things that we need to know in terms of a general outline or general information that you can share with the staff. So I will allow my other colleagues to continue with the technicalities. Prof. Ainul. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Salam. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Professor Haji. I think that's very informative. Yeah. So I think what we're going to do is that we'll get all those speakers to have their session first, and then we'll have the Q&A later. So without further ado, let me call upon Associate Professor Dr. Lihana, the Director of KCA, to proceed with her session. Tafadhal.
Right. Thank you, Prof. Ainul. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Thank you, Professor G. Okay. Basically, well, he has actually said a lot of the things that should actually make things clearer, but let me just take it then from the big picture perspective and also from the quality assurance perspective. Okay. So for us to remember that remote learning and teaching is not just about online learning. Okay, so it is not just a question of transferring face-to-face activities to an online platform, or even worth thinking that what we are doing is face-to-face now, we have to transfer to an online meeting platform. Okay, so it's really not that. It's really, when we talk about, Professor Haji previously talked about blended learning, is the idea that we're not there physically with the students, and actually in a way we are going to give them more and to have them be more independent. So they have to be more self-regulated learners, okay? Which is what they should actually be, which is what we should have been doing all along, not spoon feeding them, okay, but really providing space. Our classes are not just about, it should not be just about it should not be on just giving content, but it should actually about getting them to think, to be critical, the way that the president yesterday talked about what our classes should be like. And that is pretty much actually what we should be doing, that our classes are supposed to be about, they read beforehand and then they come and then we, summarize some things for them or clarify things for them. And then we start really discussing, getting them to be critical, getting them to contemplate on what they have read. Okay, and then also, practicing the skills, okay, so critical thinking and also application of the skills. So those are the kind of things that we should have been doing, and now we have to do it online. So why do we call it emergency for, we're not calling it online learning for this semester. I'm actually hoping it is for this semester only, inshallah. Okay, we're calling it ERTL, the emergency part. Why do we call it emergency? Because we didn't plan for this. When we started our curriculum, when we planned out our semester, we're pretty much expecting the normal blended learning approach. That 30% using some online, and then the rest is face-to-face. But now we have to actually do it remotely. Okay, we can't have our students with us in class. Okay, so that's why we call it emergency, but it's not emergency in a way that we have to do it right away. So this is why we do it from the 1st of June. Well, from the 1st of June for us to start testing, and then now 15th of June for us to start proper. A lot of us here are really familiarizing ourselves with a lot of the things out there, and CPD has been doing a good job with that. A shout out to Prof. Nolida out there. Okay, and because our existing policies also have to be amended so that what we are doing is legal. We do not want our students to have problems later when they are applying for jobs, when when we are going through the accreditation audit, if it's not there, it's not in our existing policy, so we have to do that. But we do have this fallback that is emergency, so that at least, but we do follow the guideline that has been given by the MQA. So we're not just doing this everything just on whatever we feel like doing, but we do want to give the best. We do not want our students to be noted as COVID batch, and that COVID batch is like something, they're not really that well trained. So we don't want that. So this is something I think we as lecturers have to bear in mind, which is why we don't start it right away, so that we are able to prepare ourselves. Okay, we just have to be honest with ourselves. A lot of us are not, we are going out of our comfort zone. And alhamdulillah, from CPD's feedback, that a lot of us are picking up this challenge. Okay, and I'm sure by the time we start formally on the 15th, inshallah, we'll be able to do it properly. Appropriately. It's just that right now a lot of us are anxious. It's not something that we prepared ourselves for. Okay, so that's the idea of the ERTL. That's why we don't call it simply online learning. Okay, now what do lecturers have to do? In the ERTL guideline given, we have actually set it up. If you can look it up. Okay, and the lecturer's responsibility. Okay, so lecturer is responsible to set up the virtual meeting room. I think a lot of us have actually practiced this. Okay, so you have your preferred platform. The university has also will also technically provide support for 3 platforms, but we actually do have our own choice to do to pick the one that we feel most comfortable with. And then we also have to ensure that the sessions are properly conducted. Now, we don't actually have to have sessions all the time, so we don't have, for example, if our class is 1.5 hours, our scheduled face-to-face class is 1.5 hours, we don't have to run that online meeting room, okay, online class for a full 1.5 hours, which is why actually if you read previously we say that go for flipped classroom. What it means is that we have set up all the content, things that we think the students should be able to understand by reading, okay, or by viewing the videos or whatever media that we have prepared, then, put that up. Tell them, okay, for this next the session that we're going to meet before to meet on this certain date, make sure that you have gone through all these materials. Okay, and then when we have that session, okay, we can, instead of actually giving lectures, because we have prepared our voice over PowerPoints and everything like that beforehand. So that's essentially also is our lecture. It's just asynchronous. So that synchronous one, the one that we have that with the virtual meeting room, we discuss. Okay, it's more of a discussion, clarification, seeing whether they understand or getting them to actually ask even more challenging questions. If we can get them to do that, inshallah. Okay, and then for quality assurance purposes, I mean, make it a session that we will really enjoy doing, but we don't really have to do it the full 1.5 hours. You just have to know why you have that session. So you have that session objectives. It is recommended you share the objective with the students first also, so that they know what that session is supposed to be for. Okay, and then we just have to make sure that that session, the objectives for that session are met. And then, but so if say our class is 1.5 hours, and then we can do it in 20 minutes, the virtual meeting, 20 minutes, you still cannot be quote unquote not available offline. Okay. So for the rest of the time, we may not be in sync, but if the students have questions, they may ask you, they should be able to either email you, WhatsApp you, or using whatever platform that you have agreed with the students. So that 1.5 hours during that scheduled class time, you are available to the students. Well, we are available to our students. Okay. So keep a log of the sessions. So what we do during the live sessions, the interactions that we do offline. So those are the things that you have to keep track of. Okay. And then this is also the idea there is that we build our social presence. This is what is social presence? Social presence, one of the way we can see we can define what social presence is to be connected, to interact with other humans as real people through this medium of communication, through this online. So we are still there for our students. That's basically the idea. We are still there for our students. We are still going to be able to play the role of the Murabi. Okay, so I think that's actually the thing that we're worried about, that we're not going to be able to affect them as much as we could, compared to a face-to-face session. That's a fair assessment to make, okay, given that we're not used to it. But inshallah, I still believe that, okay, we can do it. And it will probably be something that we will going to enjoy doing, because the idea of ERTL is really also for this to become a jumpstart for us to really do a blended learning approach, that we don't just use iTalim for a place for us to dump our notes, okay, but really for us to not just be able to be available to the students, during our class times, but to be able to affect them also outside of these class times, pretty much fulfilling the role of the Murabi there. So I stop here first, okay, and then come back for the question and answers later. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Lihana. So maybe I'll just prick you with some questions first as the questions crop up, because I think there'll be lots of other questions that will come up later. You mentioned about, okay, we don't have to keep it's a 3 hours, 3 hours a week course.
Yep.
So we don't have to keep the 3 hours a week for both synchronous as well as the asynchronous.
Yes.
Right. But make sure for QA reason, keep a log of the session.
Yes.
Right. So do all these things have to be documented in our course file?
Yes. We actually have given out the template to the kuliah, okay, to the deans, to the deputy deans. So I'm assuming that after this, the deputy deans will then cascade it to the head of departments and then to the individual lecturers. So there are the template for the log sessions, and then just keep it in the course files, which will be audited. So ini soalan bocor. It will be audited, okay?
All right. Okay.
And the next audit, it will be audited.
That's very important, because we have to capture the moment, because we've
I
got
know.
Yes.
Right now, I just want to add to that.
Yes.
As long as course learning outcomes are achieved, MQA will support us. So do keep all the documentation when changes are made to achieve the learning outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you have the learning outcomes and you have the assessment methods, you might change, you want to change this assessment methods, by all means it's okay, as long as you achieve the learning outcomes, but the documentation must be there so that when they come in and we submit to MQA, the documentation is ready. That's the most important thing.
Yes.
All right. So that's very important. So whatever changes that we do, we
Yes.
have to make sure that it's got documented, and then please get the template whatever from the head of department, and then document it. And one of the things that you also said is about not necessarily fulfilling the 3 hours, but because students have a few courses in one semester, so keeping to the hour according to the original timetable is also important. Can I say that?
Yes, I mean, you don't have to actually discuss with the students. Is everybody available this time? By right, the timetable that we have used previously, they should be available for you, for your class, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, as a lecturer, I shouldn't be taking another person's slot. I have my own slot already. So that's the time when I expect the students to be available, and I will also be available. So,
Very,
so
very true.
that way we don't.
Very true, because you have to fulfill your designated class hours, because if not, you will interfere with another person's class hours. You can cut it short, like Dr. Lihana
Yes.
mentioned just now, using flipped classroom. I hope most of us are aware what flipped classroom is all about. It's just like tutorials. We give them the reading assignment beforehand. We give them the reading materials or some questions. During the virtual or Zoom session, we can clarify issues, answer some questions based on a topic and based on a reading assignment. So you don't have to give a lecture. So you don't have to spend 1 hour, 2 hours on that. So you can cut it short, but don't go beyond the designated class hours, because it will interfere with another person's class hours.
Okay, so that is again very important, because after 2 months we've forgotten about our class schedule. So our course,
That's okay. Our class list has that class schedule.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
right? Professor Ji, there was one question about your dry run just now. What does it entail? So what are the things that we need to do during the
During just like a normal classroom, but it will not be counted, just to make sure that we identify issues with our students, issues with the internet, issues with our students. Our students are supposed to, the 20 students are supposed to be there, suddenly there are only 10. What happened? We cannot capture them, Dr. Gary cannot capture them. Or in terms of the presentation itself, maybe it's not clear. Whatever that we need to know in terms of before we start with our actual official synchronous classroom. So this is a try run, basically, a dry run. So that we can correct if there are problems before we start with the official one.
Okay, so in other words, knowing all the problems have to be ironed out before the 15th.
Exactly, within that 1 week.
Okay, thank you. So I think Prof. Ida is here. So let's pass the baton to Prof. Ida. Prof. Ida, your
Yes,
turn?
yes, I'm here. I'm here.
All
Can you
right.
see me?
Yes.
Yes. Let me share something. Oh, okay. Can I do this?
We don't see anything.
I'm very bad at things. Wait. Am I still here?
You're still here,
Well,
but
you start with Gary first.
Okay, so Dr. Gary? Well, we sort out the technology from Ida. Okay.
Never mind. Dah.
Oh, dah okey dah.
Belum.
Apa lambat tu?
Yes,
Amat ni.
she has to call her technician. It's okay,
Yeah.
Dr. Gary. Why don't you take over? You begin first. Thanks.
Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thanks CPD for inviting to this webinar. I think most of the thing yang on the guideline, Professor Adi have talked about the stuff on the guideline. Okay, but I'll just try to because when I look at the question, when I go when I listen to most of the training these past few weeks, there's a lot of question about final exam. Okay, how to do final exam and everything. So maybe I try to concentrate on that. Okay. But before that, what we can do is we can keep in our mind. Okay. When we talk about this emergency remote teaching and learning, okay, in the 80s, in the 90s, we have distant learnings where we send materials to students. Okay? And from there, they read, okay? And from there, we give them, at that time, the student are given instruction what to do, what are assignment that need to be done. So in a way, if you are talking about e-learning may not be, we may not need to be online in order for us to have e-learning. Okay, and this is going to be very, very important if you are talking about students who do not have good access to internet. Okay, one of the thing that kuliah have to do, okay, if you follow the guideline, is that kuliah need to communicate with the students, okay, and they need to send the names to AMAD. Okay, so one of the thing that we have done is that if the lecturers go to their class list, their class list already have the phone numbers and email of the students. Okay, we may not have phone numbers of every student, okay, because it depends on whether they have given their phone numbers, they have registered their phone numbers and email in our system. Okay, what some lecturers have done is that the lecturers have contacted the students, okay, asking them, okay, what level of internet access do they have? Do they have computers or not? Okay, and there are a lot of instances where when the lecturer use the number and call, okay, what they get is the parents, okay, instead of the students, because when the students apply to the university, okay, the phone number that they put is the phone numbers of their parents. Okay, we have cases where lecturers have where the parents don't really trust. Is it really lecturers from IUM? Okay, and the lecturers have to convince the father, saying that, oh, this is lecturers from IUM, then we need to talk to your daughters, we need to talk to your sons. Okay, I think that's one of the first things that need to be done, okay, in order for us to know, okay, which students have access, which students are going to have problems. Because knowing this, then we can think about, okay, what method of delivery that we want to use, what method of assessment that we want to use. If let's say 100% of the students say that they have high quality internet, okay, it is very easy for them to use Zoom, to use Google Meet. There will be no interruption in the line. Okay, then for the lecturers to do synchronous lectures is not going to be hard for the students. Okay, so if let's say you have a lot of students that do not have good access to internet, okay, then the method of delivery may also need to change. So that's why in our guideline we tell the kuliah we need to get the name of the student by the 19, I think. Okay, why is it? Because we want lecturers to be prepared, okay, knowing what type of student that they have, okay, knowing what type of student that they have, then they can think about, okay, what type of delivery that they can do, okay, what type of assessment that they can do. Okay, if let's say every student have good quality internet, and then the lecturers really want to do online final exam, okay, then the problems may not be too hard. If let's say you have a lot of students do not have a good internet, then for sure you cannot have an online exam for the class. Okay, so that's why the importance of the importance that the kuliah, the lecturers communicate with the students. Okay, because we have, okay, not just starting from the 1st June, okay, to have that trial run, okay, but even currently the lecturers need to communicate. We already have a lot of lecturers that are communicating with the student when they know that they have that the class list with the phone numbers and email. Okay, and the student and the lecturers, from what I heard from the lecturers who have contacted the students, okay, a lot of students are able to do online. Okay, but there are some percentage of the student who are not who's going to have problems. Okay, so that's where the university may need to come and try to help the students. Okay, in term of final exam, okay, if we look at the guideline, okay, what stated on the guideline is that there will be no centralized time final examinations. Okay, why we put it over there? Because we know there's going to be a percentage of the students, okay, if we want to do online exam, they are going to have problems. Okay, they are going to have problem for sure. Then they will not be able to take the exam. There's going to be a lot of problem. That's why we put it in the guideline. There is no centralized time final exam. So what if lecturers want to have some type of final exam or final assessment? What the lecturers need to do first is the lecturers need to know, okay, their student access to internet. If they are students who have problem, for sure you cannot have online exam. Okay, if all the students have access to internet, have good access to internet, because when we talk about access to internet, okay, we have to know the quality of the access also. Okay, so the student may have access, but okay, sometime when it's rain, there's going to be problem. Okay, sometimes the internet are not stable. So if you have something like that, then the quality is not good. Okay, the internet is not stable. Okay, so if let's say you do a synchronized lecture and you say something, then your screen, the screen, the student screen may be frozen for a certain period. Okay, if the internet are not stable. So those are the things that we have to think about. Okay, when we plan our delivery. Okay, how to deliver our course, how to assess the student. Okay, now if let's say all students say that they have good quality internet, okay, and the lecturers want to do online exam, because we have a lot of requests from lecturers that want to do online exam. Okay, since the guidelines say there is no centralized final exam, okay, and what we put over there is that the kuliah will have to be responsible. Okay, so the kuliah, then the lecturers will have to talk to the kuliah, okay, how to go about and do the final exam. Okay, but keep in mind, if you are talking about final exam, 3 hours final exam, okay, and it is online exam, the student will have to be in front of the computers for 3 hours, and for 3 hours the internet have to be stable. Okay, and the probability that you're going to have that is very, very small if you are talking about Malaysia. Okay, you are talking about the other countries, developed countries that come out with all this online exam platform. Okay, their internet are much better. Okay, in fact, if you are talking about TOEFL used to have online exam. Okay, but there are a lot of issues. Okay, so it is not easy. So the best is, okay, what need to be done is you need to convert your you have to convert final exam to final assessment anyway. Okay, you have to convert your final exam to final assessment. Okay, so if you want to do your online, final assessment online, my suggestion is, and it is a long time, my suggestion is not to do it. Okay, if you, what can be done is, if you really want to have some type of sit in final exam, whether it's in front of the computers, what can be done is you can break up the final exam. Okay, so most final exams going to have a lot of questions. So what you can do is you can break up the exam into into 3 different parts, into 4 different parts. Okay, one day, in the first in the first 20, so you have 20 minutes for one question. Okay, and then the next day you have another question for 20 minutes. The next day you have another question for 20 minutes. So in about 1 or 2 weeks, okay, you are done with the final, exam. So it will be able to solve that that internet or connectivity, that connectivity problem. Okay? And you still have some, you still have your final online final examination. Okay, but that is if you really want to have something that is similar to final exam. Okay, my suggestion is not to do that. Okay, because it's okay, in terms of the stability of internet is not something that is easy. So it's better for you to change your final examination to different type of assessment. Okay, where you do not have where the student don't need to be time, okay, in doing their exam. Okay, so I think I'll just stop it over there first, and then okay, we'll take question now. For sure, there will be a lot of more question on the final exam. Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
I think there will be a lot of questions on final exam, but perhaps we'll get Dr. Ida to go first and we'll take the exam questions later. Okay. Ida, are you ready?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
Right. Right. Okay. Okay, do you see me?
Yes.
No?
Nature something.
Yeah. Can you see me?
Of course, it always but
Alright.
share ni.
All right, I'm sharing my slides for today. Can you see on the screen? Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam. Yes, we can see. We can see the screen, but it's quite vague. The writings are quite vague.
It's fine. It's meant to be that, so that you have to go nearer. Cannot be read. Maybe I can change the background color of the slides.
Maybe while waiting for the technology to come back. Dr. Gary, yesterday there was a question for content loaded courses, like the Unicore courses. Is there a possibility to change them to just pass fail?
Pada ni tak?
With
Unicore memang most of the courses are pass fail.
Terus ada
Which courses is it? Most of the UNGS courses are pass fail.
Okay. All right. So I don't know. I can't. But let's Bahasa Malaysia.
tapi kata tak boleh choose.
For Kerjaya.
Slide tu.
Is that a possibility?
Apa?
Expect a lot of technical errors.
Dr. Gary?
Ya, tak dengar.
Bahasa Malaysia for Bahasa Melayu for Kerjaya. Is there a possibility to change to pass fail?
Itu bukan Unicore.
Oh, that's not. Oh, you go. Okay, sorry. All right, Profida, we can hear. We can see your screen better now.
All right. Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I'm sorry for the technical glitches. Expect all these technical glitches and have fun with it for the next 2 or 3 months or until at the end of the year, they say we're going to have these remote classes. Now, Prof. Isarji started by talking about blended learning and why we should move towards more and more e-content for our teaching and assessment. And he mentioned that at the moment we are running at 30% in the form of e-format and 70% in the form of face-to-face, which I kind of dispute because I think the percentage is less than that. Unfortunately for us, even though the technology has been there for some time, we have not been utilizing it to the utmost. And when this remote teaching comes to us out of a sudden, it was really out of a sudden, and everybody was, taken aback by shock, actually. So what is so new and worrying about remote classes? We get to be instructed to run all our classes online only last couple of weeks, right? But if you look at the top universities in other parts of the world, they've started moving to remote classes since March, and some of them in April. So we can actually learn from these universities, learn from their learning curve, and see how they conduct all their undergraduate programs as well as postgraduate programs through remote platform. Now, if you look at websites from other countries, they've put up a lot of useful information, particularly for PG programs and PG students, on how to survive in this COVID-19. And they have also quite useful advice for the educators on how to shift their teaching and learning into an online platform. And I do agree with Dr. Lihana, because this thing come to us very sudden in the moment that, we do things very fast, and all we think of is just change the way we give lectures, instead of face-to-face, and it becomes into, face-to-screen. And we end up repeating what we do in class in our Zoom session, in our video session. But actually, remote classes is more than that. If you can actually learn the technology well, you can use it for all kinds of things. There are a lot of educational materials out there that are pretty useful that you can share with the students and, use it for your teaching. Now, if you look at the impact of PG studies on students, they are actually quite a bit. The PG population in UIA is about 22% or 21%. In comparison to the total population of the students. And we've received feedback from the students of their concerns and worries about this remote teaching, because we've had a number of sessions with the students. They are worried about this remote teaching learning, and particularly assessment. They worry about them wanting to have access to research laboratories. Some of the students are actually stranded in their home country, and they were not able to come back to Malaysia. And some of them are even stranded halfway. Some of them were on the way to come to Malaysia, and they got stranded, somewhere else. And we've received email from them asking help from us because they're stranded elsewhere. There are a lot of issues in relation to visa. I still receive advice from students or queries from students how to go about with their visa. They are worried about their graduation requirements. They are worried about their field work because it's now being disrupted. They are worried about their data collection, their interviews, and some of them, they work with live cultures, and somehow, their animals died or their cultures died because of this COVID-19 disruption. They are having a lot of personal issues being isolated in the mahalla, self-quarantine, and they also have a problem complying with the restricted movement order. And we've had students who are under police remands for breaking the restricted movement order. And, the police do not take such non-compliance of the law very lightly, and they end up being in police remand for more than a few days, and it takes some time for their embassies to to actually appeal to the authorities and get them out, from the remand. I'm so sorry about the background of the slides.
Yeah, Prof. Madiha, a
Yeah.
lot of comments about your slide. They can't see your slide, so
I
is there
know,
anything
I
that you
know.
can do?
Prof
I
Ida,
maybe I stop staring. I stop staring to look at my face. No,
Try
just look at
to
my
turn
face.
off the light.
Which light? My office. Okay, let me do it. Hold on.
Okay, so having said that, probably some of us may have our postgraduate students are stranded or who are having difficulties in continuing. So what possibility of asking for deferment just now?
Okay. Now, if you look at UIA guidelines, we have come up with a number of guidelines, right? And I'm sure some of you have read the guidelines. In fact, I was joking to my colleagues and say that we can actually compile the guidelines and combine it nicely because that shows how thick our guidelines have become. But the most important thing is, if you look at the first guideline that we come up with that was approved in April 2020, at that time we were still thinking that it is possible for us to come back to campus and do face-to-face teaching. And especially for PG studies, because our classes are quite small and intensive. I've seen the class list of all the sections that are being taught in UIA, for PG. The students' population range between 2 students per class to, I think, the most probably 18 or 20 or 30. Very rare it will come out to 30 students in a class. So I was thinking in my mind back at that time, this is wonderful for PG because we can continue with our face-to-face, because at that time, if you look at our first guidelines, it says 50 students with priority given, 50 students, not more than 50 students, then you can have your usual face-to-face. So back in my mind, I thought, wow, so I don't have to worry about PG taught classes. But when you look at the most recent guidelines, which were approved a couple of weeks ago, maybe 1 week ago, then it looks clear that everything will be online, right? And that would include even PG students as well, PG taught classes. And there'll be no sit-in examination. I've received a lot of requests from lecturers, professors, these are very senior professors, because their classes are quite small, 5 students, 9 students, they ask permission to continue running their classes face-to-face. They also ask permission to do their exam face-to-face. Unfortunately, the policy is very clear. The policy is very clear that there should not be any face-to-face classes unless the lists which are listed and in the guidelines and are already approved by DRAIL office, and unless your students are expected to do some kind of lab work or experiment and that kind of thing. But from the beginning, we were working with the students and appealing to the higher authorities to allow the students to come back for experiment. And alhamdulillah, last few days, as you all heard as well, students are now allowed to go back to the lab. And if you look at the recent guidelines, there is an SOP on the use of research facilities. And we were hoping that the kuliah as well as the supervisor will be responsible in monitoring the use of the research laboratories. And the SOP is strictly followed, because if there were any form of contamination in research labs, for example, we'll be able to do the contact tracing, we'll be able to do the contamination and damage or risk control or containment as much as possible. Now, since the beginning of MCO, CPS itself has moved a lot of its functions into an online mode. We've not rested this CMO. We have come up with a lot of guidelines to move our Viva into online, our PTEM online, proposal defense online. We've also revised the graduation requirement. If you remember previously, students have to come with their theses, and we have to measure and see whether the format is complied with. Now it's all electronic copies. The supervisor is expected to check whether the students have complied with the manual, the template, the thesis template, and the students are allowed to submit that for graduation requirement. We have also revised the registration system into an online registration because we're expecting new students to come in October. Although the position with regards to international students are still not clear, it is possible for international students to apply to get their VAL online, but once they get their VAL, they definitely would have to be here physically to do their health check and whatnot. And of course, traveling is still restricted at that time. So a lot of things we're not quite sure whether they'll be able to come to campus physically or not. Now, as easy as it is to move online, of course, everybody has concern. And by the look of the queries that we receive from the professors, it's very clear cut that everybody is concerned about giving good quality education, right? And all these gadgets and remote thingy is not comfortable to a lot of people because we are ourselves in the classrooms. We want our classroom to be fun, engaging, and especially for PG studies because the classroom are small. There are a lot of mentoring, and we're going to miss all those fun time, having lunch, meeting with our PG students by moving everything into online. But that is a challenge that we have to face, and I believe that if you want to make this ERTL work, we need to change our mindset. We need to realign our expectation, and the students as well. They need to realign the expectation. They need to think of the possibility of shift in terms of the timeline to complete their research project. And for the lecturers as well, they have to figure out what are the suitable questions to be put in their assessment because it's now no longer possible to have a sit-in exam. And of course, I would rather we take the opportunity to really improve, our electronic materials, and maybe in the future we should start having online remote courses. Like some of you might have joined a lot of the courses now being offered by Harvard or Oxford, and you can study in your own time online. I was hoping that in the future we'll be able to develop that. For CPS, we, as much as possible, we want to collaborate with the Kuliah to create good online materials so that our PG students can benefit that to the utmost. But of course, there are a lot of issues that we need to consider post COVID-19. And the only thing I can say is that even though all this so-called emergency, remote teaching and learning is something that we have to do because of the situation, but I think it is also time for us to change to better and more beneficial platform, because in this COVID-19 time, the only constant is change. And I'm so sorry about the technical glitches. This is part of the trial run. I should have the trial run much earlier before this webinar. Right, thank you. Wabillahi taufiq wa hidayah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. Prof. Ida, can you say something about Viva? You talk about the submission, you talk about the next registration and then submission of thesis. What about Viva procedure?
The procedure is more or less the same. It's just that the Viva session itself is conducted by Skype. We've started online Viva the beginning of April, and we've actually completed around 30 Viva already. And Brother Isan is actually doing it from home, and we're lucky because he has good laptop, put it that way, and his internet connection is also very good. So he had like 2 sessions, one in the morning and one in the afternoon. But that means the number of Viva that we can conduct now is less than before MCO, because before that we used to have 2 Viva in the morning and 2 Viva in the afternoon. But once we have, you know, bigger demand, we can actually distribute the Viva to 2 officers to conduct it.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, thank you. Let's open it to the floor. So, any question to any of the panelists? I think they'll be happy to attend to your question. So, anyone? Any question?
Prof. Ida, actually we collected all the questions in the Google Slides. Maybe we can go through those questions. Yeah, let me share the question.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, Prof. I know. So these are the questions.
Oh, okay. So these are the questions. If students cannot cope with ERTL, they are allowed to drop several courses and being under load, less than 15 credit hours instead of applying for study leave. Is that possible? Yeah.
Yes. In emergency, everything's okay. Even in the guidelines already stated that the student can drop the courses.
The student can drop some courses, but
Yes,
they are
the student can defer and the student can drop courses.
Okay, all right. So is there a minimum? If they take one course, is that
since they are allowed to defer, then there is no minimum. There is no minimum. They can take how many courses? They can take maybe one course if they want.
How is that going to affect their graduation on time?
If they take less course, then it's going to take some more time for them to graduate because it's up to them. We give them we give them choices. If they think that they cannot cope with the ERTL, then they can drop.
All right. The second question. Let's say after MCO with the ERTL, will ERTL become RTL as alternative in a normal situation, not in an emergency measure? So in other words, after semester 1, what's going to happen in after semester 2? What's going to happen in semester 1? Maybe Prof. Isaji can answer to that.
As I mentioned just now, our methodology is blended learning. Our target is going for 50-50. Now is Prof. Ida mentioned about 30-70. It's not achieved, but that's our target basically. But after this, after the MCO, we are going for 50-50. What I'm trying to say here is that face-to-face will remain as it is, but we are trying to increase the percentage of online remote teaching and learning. So that's our target. We're not after MCO. We are not going to go straight into what do you call 100% online. Face-to-face is there. It will stay there forever. But to increase the online learning there, so that everybody, because that's the way forward.
Okay. All right. Probably this is also for Prof. Saji. What about clocking in and clocking out by academicians? So are we still bound by that?
I give an example, kuliah engineering before MCO, before the pandemic. All kuliahs are allowed to come up with their own guidelines in terms of log in, log out. It's up to the kuliah to work on that. For this one, as I said, once it is work from home. Once you fulfill your teaching load, that is maybe 15 hours a week or less, and that is okay. Because what we want to do is, what we want to make sure is that you fulfill your requirements or your duty as a lecturer, number one. Number two, as far as the courses are concerned, they fulfill the course learning outcomes.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Dr. Mira, if you can go down, what does, okay, academic quality auditing. I think this is KCA. So what are the things that we have to still keep ensuring that the quality auditing is is, we fulfill those criteria for auditing.
Yes, actually. Yes. Okay, which is why apa tu which is we have actually used the MQA guideline. MQA has given out the guideline from the very beginning, so we have used this to make sure that our students, our programs are not going to be unaccredited, disaccredited, or whatever we call it. Okay, so yes, because the thing to remember is we have to maintain the quality of our graduates. We do not want our graduates to be blacklisted and seen as these COVID graduates who don't know what they should know. Okay, so yes.
There are two
We're
things that we
provided,
need.
but this is also why we need to get all lecturers to make sure that you do the documentation properly.
Yeah.
Okay, so like that log sessions that we do, don't wait until the end of the semester. Every time you do your sessions, fill up that log. Okay, so that your work is easier and then our work is easier. So we help each other, inshallah.
Based on our discussion with MQA and the professional bodies, the MQA
Okay,
and
Prof.
professional bodies MQAs and professional bodies are very flexible. They allow universities to work within their own frameworks. But as I said just now, documentation is very important. So you can, as far as documentation is concerned, you have the documentation. At the same time, if you have questions, do ask your professional body also. They are very flexible. They can assist you on this matter. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Dr. Mira, can you scroll down a little bit to see all the questions? Okay. All right. Students who do not have access.
Contact Dr. Gary. Dr. Gary, get the phone number to Gary. An address.
I think
Because,
some of us are anxious to know to what extent are we giving assistance to the students other than
Prof. Ainul, let me help you on this. I'm working with Dr. Gary, to Lahana, Prof. Nobit, and etc. Even tomorrow, today at 2 p.m. I'll be meeting with Dr. Prof. Nobit, the representatives from the telcos, to work it out. What we are looking at is that first we have to identify students, number one, who do not have Wi-Fi, students who have problems with Wi-Fi, students who do not have laptops. These are the three important categories that we have to identify. We cannot help the students. We do not know where they are if we cannot contact them. Once we are able to contact them, then we will be able to assist. For example, hopefully by the end of the day, we are able to negotiate with telcos in terms of the blanket deal. For example, other universities, it costs about 53 ringgit per month plus SST per student for example, Cycom Wi-Fi. So we want to work around that. And then if you talk about 1,000, 2,000 students, the university will be able to help. The university want to help the students. The university will find ways and means to help the students. Those who do not have laptops, but it has to be genuine lah, jangan nak tipu kan. Kata laptop dekat mahalah, tiba-tiba kata, oh, we don't have the laptops. So basically, if you do not have laptops, we try to provide some kind of loans or whatever, some kind of mechanism to help you. So, but let us know first what are the problems that you have so that we can help you. So lecturers must help us by identifying their students also on this matter.
All right, thank you. So
can I?
Yes.
Can I add that? Okay. So if we go through the guideline. Okay, if you go through the guideline, okay. Okay. What we have been asking kuliah to do is to communicate with the students. Okay, and if we go through the guidelines say that students who do not have computers and do not have internet, we allow them to come back to campus. Okay, assuming that MKN going to allow cross-border movement. Okay, so that's one. Okay, we hope that MKN is going to allow cross-border movement, and for students who do not have the devices to come back to to come back to campus. So if let's say the student are able to come back to campus, then the student will be able to use the internet facilities in the campus. Okay, so that's why we have that the guideline. So now if let's say the student MKN do not allow cross border up until the 15. Okay, so that's where we have to think about the soft loan and the subsidized and trying to help the student to get internet access. Okay, hopefully MKN is going to allow students to come a certain amount of students, okay, who have problem to come back to campus. If not in the middle of June, hopefully by July or by August, they will be able to come back. Okay, thank you.
In other words, what is important now, we have about 1 month for each kuliah to identify your students' needs, because there will be solutions for each and every student who are in trouble, right?
Yes. Okay, so
Yeah.
because even when the lecturers know, okay, what are the need of the student, then the lecturer will need to adjust the delivery of the course to the need of the students. Okay.
All right. The other set of questions that here on the screen is about the running of the class. Is there a need to have the synchronous session? Whatever lecture decides that the sessions are all asynchronous. That's number one. And then what about attendance? So attendance is
if let's say the lecturers feel that there is no need for synchronous, then there is no need for synchronous. But the lecturers need to be able to have a quality delivery lah in terms of the asynchronous. Okay, in terms of the videos that they put on iTalim or they put wherever they put. Okay, in terms of attendance, so if we go through the guideline say that attendance is not required to be taken. Okay, but in a way, it's up to the lecturers whether to make it compulsory or not. Okay, in fact, we are giving berapa persen? A certain percentage to be given to attendance if lecturers want to do it.
I would like to add there, Dr. Gary, at the same time for synchronous classes, the majority of the students request for a synchronous class, for example, for certain period, for certain time, for Q&A, to discuss issues, by all means, because we need to entertain the needs of the students. Yeah.
okay. So the 80% is no longer valid, yeah?
Tak, no.
All right. Okay. Then so some questions about, okay, how do the students know that they can come back to campus?
It will be announced.
As it will be announced as it is right now, the latest announcements that specific postgraduate students on research mode are allowed to be on campus in June. So the next one, we're talking about final year students maybe in July, and then some other students in August, and also for new intake students in October. So these are the things that KPT and universities are working with MKN. So we just wait for the second announcement, inshallah.
Okay. Prof. Ida, there are still some lecturers who are asking if there is a second round of application for having face-to-face sessions with postgraduate students, particularly courses that really need hands-on. So some are saying that, they don't need a whole 7-8 weeks. Maybe they just need 2-3 days to just settle the face-to-face issue that they need to do, like doing things on the computer and all those things. Is there another round of asking for or appealing for face-to-face session for postgraduate courses?
All right. What you need to do is just to give the name of the courses to me, and I will work it out with Prof. Isarji and figure out, whether we can allow them to come in, like you mentioned, maybe over the weekend or one day, that's possible. Just forward the query or the response or the request to me.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, because most of the students wish not to use high-tech method, and they choose to stay at home. Is that possible for lecturers to use low-tech method during classes? So
There's no problem. Whatever
Yeah.
method that can be
Yeah.
used.
Yeah.
When you
If
talk
let's
about
say
remote
all-
learning, you're talking about open distance learning. It can be as low tech as SMS all the way to synchronous learning.
okay, another set of questions concerns about
But Raina, but whatever it is, you must fulfill the requirements of the learning outcomes, whatever methods you're going to use.
right, okay. The other set of questions are regarding the hard skills. Sorry, the soft skills, not the hard skills. Like earlier question on the Murabi, and then skills-based courses. So how do the lecturers cater for all this?
Are you asking about the higher order thinking skills?
As well as skills, other skills like there was this skill-based courses.
For example?
Set of questions on skill-based courses. The other one s- other soft skills.
Are you talking about skills like I'll give an example, yeah? Maybe it's not a good example, like playing badminton. So face to face, you have to teach students how to play badminton. Now you cannot do face to face, you go for a virtual learning, upload YouTube or whatever videos that you have of how to play badminton, rules and regulations, etc. So you can do that. If you are talking about that kind of skills, I'm not sure what kind of skills you are talking about.
They're not very specific here in the questions, but I suppose they are to that effect.
Yeah, okay.
Right. So in other words, even skill-based courses will not have the opportunity to have their face-to-face sessions, right?
No, yeah.
Okay, well, one of the things you're talking about skill courses, those are the courses that are offered by STAT. Yeah, just like badminton, cooking,
Yeah.
whatever. We'll discuss with STAT. Okay, what can be done with those courses. Some courses that have a lot of interaction most probably cannot be continued. Okay, but certain courses may be able to be continued online.
Okay. All right. So how do the students know which group of students will come back in June, and which are the ones will come back in August?
So so what we have communicated with the kuliah is that the kuliah will have to communicate with the students, okay, to see who can come back in June. Okay, in fact, there should be a form for the student to fill up. Okay, in a way, it is an application to come back in June. Okay, those who do not, those who are approved to come back in June, then will be able to come back with June. Then the kuliah will communicate with the students. Okay, those who are not approved, then will come back. Hopefully, can come back in third semester or the first semester.
At the same time, it's very important for all of us to communicate with the kuliah, the type of students that have to come in, the courses that can be done face to face. The kuliahs have all the information. The kuliahs have submitted to us. We have approved some of these courses, and it is also in the appendix C. So communicate with the deans and the heads in your kuliah, please.
Okay. All right. There are a set of questions on procedures. Now, and there might be amendments that need to be made in the study plan because of the changes there. So, who is the approving authority? Kuliah level or KCA?
Before Dr. Lihana answers that, I just want to mention a little bit about our discussion with the professional bodies and also MQA. For example, this semester, if we have a course that requires face-to-face, MQA and the professional body allow the course to be postponed for next semester and to bring forward theory courses this semester. That is one way that we can work on that. The rest of the Liana can enlighten us on this.
Yes.
All right. It's actually difficult to do a blanket thing. So perhaps Dr. Zulfaisal, talk to me offline and then we will see truly which one, but definitely not sufficient to approve at the kuliah level. Okay,
Yeah.
because we want to make sure that there is no future problems with the students later. If it is only at the kuliah level, there may be problems later. So talk to us because there are variations for each, depending on the professional body, depending on the what changes you actually want to make. Okay.
All right. Okay. So in other words, the answer to that is that you can plan for the changes, but you have to discuss with KCA later. All right. Now, there's some courses that actually require students to do field work, and the face-to-face is not limited to just on campus because the whole society, the whole country is actually on MCO. So that might affect the activities for the course. So therefore, they may not be able to finish whatever that they need to do when the semester ends in September, October. So what is the take on this?
I give you an example of what we discussed with the Kuliah of Nursing and also the professional body and MQA. For the Kuliah of Nursing, their students have to do their practicum in hospitals. Professional body said that they must do it, but they cannot do the practicum in COVID-19 based hospital. It has to be done at non-COVID based COVID-19 based hospital. So that's an example where you have to work it out with the Kuliah. Kuliah knows what to do. The dean knows what to do because they have been communicating with us. They have been communicating with MQA. They have been communicating with the professional bodies. So if individual lecturers are not in know, but if individual lecturers want to know about all this information, please ask your dean. We have already distributed all the information to the deans on this matter.
Okay.
Can I add something as well?
Yes, please.
Yes. There's so much focus on UG or PG students wanting to have access to lab and research labs. But what about the social science students? We are so used to sitting in the library, doing our work in the library. We are so used to going around, conducting interviews, doing data collection. These are all not possible with this CMO and with this remote thingy. So what the students have to do is to discuss it with the supervisor. And of course, the supervisor would have to be understanding as well. Then you have to shift or realign your research methodology, the method of collecting or acquiring data, and you have to shift it to suit the present emergency or crisis, whether you like it or not. We are having this crisis, so we have to shift and change a lot of things to enable our students to graduate. Otherwise, you have to pity them as well. Okay.
Yeah, okay. So yes, thank you. That's very important. One is to do the necessary changes. But I think affecting what is the major concern now is those final year students who are being affected. So because we have a deadline to finish everything in terms of giving the grades to the students, but things get slowed down with their practicum or their final year project. So is there a timeline? When is the latest for IP for this semester? Dr. Gary?
I have not discussed when is the timeline for IP. We try to accommodate lah.
Normally it's 2 months after the new semester, right? Within 2
so
months.
now the semester will only start in June.
October.
So we are talking about 2 months. That is going to be August.
Yeah, so that's not possible. Maybe 2 months next semester. October semester.
We can discuss the detail on the IP. Try to help the students.
All right. Okay. So
they can apply to defer their study if they want to.
The thing is, for many of the students, they have already embarked on their final year project and the internship or their placement. So to turn back, that means they have to start fresh and don't know when actually the face-to-face thingy is going to start. Okay, thank you.
As I said just now, postgraduate students on research mode, they are allowed to come in June. The next target will be final semester students, for postgraduate students, for bachelor degrees that require practical or specialized equipment. That will be, the target is in July. not for everybody. These are a specific group of people.
Okay. All right. Dr. Mira, there have been requests to ask question verbally. Is that possible for you to unmute?
Sure, Prof. Yes. So I have unmute everyone. So if you want to ask directly, you can unmute your microphone.
Okay, so let's open to the floor for those who want to ask question directly. Anyone? You can unmute if you want to ask question now.
Okay, wait.
Everybody wants
Okay, so maybe you can raise, there's a raise hand using Zoom. You can raise your hand and then I will unmute just to make sure it's easier for you to ask questions.
Okay, so please raise your hand if you want to, or please show your raise of hand for us to know that you have a question to ask. In the meantime, the limit to the number of students who can come back to campus by kuliah. Is there any limit, Dr. Gary? Are we allowing, there's no limit. Is anybody who thinks that he or she needs to come back can come back?
Oh, the number of students back on campus are limited. Okay, there will be a limit.
There will be a limit, so okay.
Yeah.
But is there a limit by kuliah? Per kuliah?
I think
Not only that,
We have to look at the whole numbers before we can decide.
not only that, Prof, I know the specific group of students, the category of students have to be decided. So as I said just now, and the ministry and MCAN, they are working out on the next group of students that are allowed to be on campus.
Okay, thank you. Okay, question? Anyone with question?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Can I ask?
Yes, please.
Mayudi here, economics.
All right.
Okay, so my question is, what if the students, we have continuous assessment still, and their materials, the students' materials to do those assignments are actually in campus. How are you going to, allow them to have access to those resources?
Right.
And the problem lies especially when these international students, they have actually gone back to their home country.
We are aware of the situations, not only international students, but there are many Malaysian students who left during the first MCO. They did not bring the course materials, they did not bring the laptops. We have discussed at our levels, we will find a way, certain dates for them to return. But whatever it is, it has to be agreed by MCAN in terms of merentas negeri, so that they have, when they cross the states, they have to get approval from MKN. So we cannot do that unless it is there is an approval or permission from MKN. But we are working on that, on the certain dates that we're going to work on.
Okay, so in terms of materials, again, the lecturers have to be creative, thinking about looking for open access material that everyone can access. Okay, there are a lot of textbooks that are free currently. Okay, and we are also, there's a lot of project triple IT textbook projects. Okay, most probably there's a lot of draft that can be circulated to students. Okay, that can be used. Okay, and for sure, I think most of the textbook, a lot of textbook are available online for free currently. Okay, because of COVID. Okay, provided by a lot of top publisher. So yeah, the lecturers have to be creative, trying to look for those references that are open access.
Okay.
If I can add up something.
Yes, Prof.
Yes. We've received queries whether the international students who have left Malaysia can continue with their classes online. You know, they can actually continue their classes online and they can actually graduate this semester or complete this semester by not having to come back to Malaysia. Because in this crisis, it's not possible for them to come back. Even if they come back, they have to, be isolated for 2 weeks and that kind of thing. So it is possible for them to follow the classes fully online and actually complete this semester online.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Any other question? There's a question to Dr. Lihana. Students' attendance for the 1st to the 15th of June, should they be recorded as well?
Okay, if you were to read the ERTL guideline, the latest one, students' attendance do not even have to be recorded at all for the rest of the semester.
Yeah.
However, I mean, from the QA perspective, I mean, otherwise we would have to, but from the quality assurance perspective, no. But if you choose to make attendance as part of the final marks, then of course you have to take the students' attendance. So I guess it's a simple idea of saying, no, for 1st to 15th June, no. Onwards, it depends on the lecturer.
Okay, thank you. All right. There was another question just now. Somebody raised his hand.
Assalamualaikum.
Salam.
I'm Hana from Salpet. The lecturers are given the permission to conduct the ERTL even during the period which was originally for the final exam. So they still have to stick to the timetable, because if in the case if they decide to have the final assessment during that period, so that it won't clash with the other courses, right?
Okay. Okay.
So I think in terms of those clashing, then the lecturers have to discuss with the students, okay, and ask them whether they have clashes or not. Because it will be impossible for AMAD to check one by one. Okay, if let's say there are clashes, then have to schedule to a different date.
Okay, so do we answer that question? Any more? Any more question? There is a question on the screen on changes to be done to the final 40%. So can we break it up to reflection, research paper, attendance? Is that possible?
Prof, I know, as I mentioned just now, you can work around the assessment methods, but you must make sure that they achieve the course learning outcomes. The course learning outcomes are achieved. That's the most important thing.
Okay, I think yes, those that has been mentioned quite a number of times by Prof. Noli and myself in Dr. Zaid's sessions as well. Okay, anyone else?
Yes.
Yes, okay, Dr. Mayudi?
Yep.
Go ahead, proceed.
I actually my question in the group chat, but the question is, what if the students still insist to continue with the semester, even though when they actually do not have reliable internet access? Will there be any authoritarian kind of approach taken against this kind of student? They still want to continue despite the unstable internet access.
Yeah.
That's why we mentioned just now, we need to identify the students so that we can help the students. There are ways and means that we can help. But before we do that, identify the students. What are the problems? And let us solve the problems together. If the internet is unstable, what are the things that we can do to make it stable? But we have to identify the students and their concerns and their problems first. If you can help us with that, alhamdulillah.
Yeah, we can go up to, lecturers can go up to just sending snail mail of the material to the students if there is a need.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Any other question?
Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam.
Can I ask?
Sure, Intan.
Okay, all right. I want to ask about student advisement. All right. Let's say students drop the courses. Can they take more than what the CGPA allows for next semester?
The issue we have to discuss that lah with Dr. Gary also. The issue will it be humanly impossible to take more than 24 at the same time to maintain the CGPA without sacrificing the CGPA? Dr. Gary?
Yeah, we have to look at the detail. It's case by case basis.
Because whether it's the core courses or still required courses, and what is the CGPA? So many issues that we have to look into first. Yeah, Doctor?
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay. Any more question? Is there any more question?
Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Yet, I still have one last question.
Okay.
Since everything is still on trial basis, or this is still something very new to all of us, what is the communication platform for us to raise rising matters? Throughout the semester, what is the communication platform that will allow us to get necessary advice as the semester proceeds?
If you are
do you have call-in center or whatever that will help us if there is a need, especially with technical parts lah?
Yeah, basically there are a few things that we can look at. Number one is issues in terms of software, how to use the software, issues in terms of the hardware, in terms of pedagogy, and a few other things. So we have to sit down together and see who is to answer questions on pedagogy, who is to answer questions on software, and etc. So inshallah, we will have that to assist all the lecturers and also the students, so that we have the hotline for everybody.
Yes, hotline. Yes, that's
and
it.
yeah, inshallah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam.
There's actually a question on the group chat. It is quite interesting question. Individual course instructor given freedom to design their alternative assessment. Any requirement for standardization in terms of assessment components, and also if you have any recommendation for final assessment. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for the question. Maybe I can answer that a little bit. I think the document that each kuliah is to set up your committee to have a vetting of the assessments that are where changes are done. Okay, and then all the changes have to be documented at the kuliah level. But after that, what happens, whether we need to send or get it vetted, or how do we notify the KCA, that probably invite Dr. Rihana to say something.
Yes, Prof. Anil had it down pat. So basically, the monitoring is at the kuliah level. Okay, so each kuliah will then have their own SOP on that, and then kuliah will then just send us the changes, okay, for notification, and then we will just escalate it up to Senate so that everything is on board, inshallah.
Let me reiterate what was mentioned just now. All programs, all kuliah, all courses must have the vetting session. You must have the vetting session. That is compulsory, before, now, and in the future.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other question?
Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam.
Prof, I have a question. Student asked me if we continue with online courses, okay, is there going to be any discount for the fees, educational fees? Thank you.
Okay, so undergraduate or postgraduate?
Postgrad.
Okay, postgraduate. Prof. Ida, you still here? Prof. Ida? Can they get discount if the courses are conducted online? So they're not here.
Well, I'm not in the position to answer that. Maybe Prof. Isarji can consider that.
Basically, if you have a degree, is now, as far as we are concerned right now, we have not decided on that yet. But personally speaking, whether you're doing online, whether you're doing face-to-face, if you manage to fulfill the requirements of the courses, the fees, you have to pay the fees. Unless you cannot complete the course, that's something else.
Okay, thank you, Prof.
Okay, welcome.
Okay, maybe we can allow for one last question. Anyone last question?
One last question, bila nak habis ni, Prof. Aino?
One last question? No last question? Going one? Going twice? Okay. All right. Okay. So Alhamdulillah, so we've come to the end. Thank you, Prof. Isarji, the Deputy Director of Academic and Industrial Linkage, Prof. Ida, Dean of CPS. Dr.
Can I
Lihan.
just say last words?
Oh, yes, please.
Yeah. I know it's disappointing for students. Some of them, they fly from all over the places to come here to UIA to study in classes before professors that they've heard are very renowned and well-known, and suddenly they are caught with this remote teaching. And I think this situation is faced by all students around the world, and there are things that are beyond our control. And and I know some of the top universities, they do give discounts, but as far as UIA is concerned, I think it's not up to me to to decide on that. Anyway, but I wish we do our best to teach the students, because it's part of our manah. Whether it's by face-to-face or whether it's online, we should do our best to teach the student to the utmost.
Yeah, thank you, Prof. Ida. I would like to thank Prof. Aino, Dr. Ilhana, Dr. Gary, and also CPD, CPD, Prof. Nolida, and Dr. Mira. I forgot to mention about them just now. So all the colleagues, thank you very much for sharing.
Thank you, Prof. Alhamdulillah, you remember us.
Words? Dr. Lihana, your last words?
My last words, well, we're here. Okay, so if you need to ask questions, just know that we're here. Okay, you know, work from home is work from home. It's actually even worse than work from the office because timing wise, but you know, inshallah, this is new territory. Okay, but inshallah, we will take the best from this experiences that we're going to get after this, and then make our teaching and learning, our academic program even stronger. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. And last but not least, Dr. Gary. Dr. Gary, your last word?
Yeah. Don't worry, it's going to be hard, but we'll be able to survive if we communicate.
Dr. Gary tak banyak cakap, dia banyak kerja tapi dia tak banyak cakap.
Okay, all right. Okay, I think my last word is that we are all in this together. So let's do this together. Inshallah, we'll brave it through to the best interest of our students. So it's going to be a new normal, but the new normal it will be. So with this also, since this is the end of the series of the webinar for the month of Ramadan. So now that we're closing the month of Ramadan, let's all hope that inshallah when we come back after Ramadan.
Selamat menyambut Hari Raya.
Yes. Oh yes, selamat menyambut Hari Raya, maaf zahir batin. Selamat Hari Raya. All get prepared for the new normal, new semester, inshallah. So with
ada
that,
orang tak boleh balik Kota Baru. Dia nak nangis.
Nangis.
Tak boleh balik.
Jangan gelik, tak boleh gelik.
Tak boleh cross state, tak boleh. Thank you.
Okay, so let's end our session with Suratul As and Tasbih Kifarah. Allahumma wa bihamdika asyhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Okay, thank you again. Selamat Hari Raya, maaf zahir batin.
Selamat Hari Raya semua.
Okay, Assalamualaikum.
Oi, Razak. Hey, ya.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullah. Jazakumullahu khair, everybody.
Yes, thank you CPD for all this. So inshallah.
Yes, especially Dr. Mira for anchoring this. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Allah bless all of you, all the panel. Thank you so much. CPD really appreciate all the support from everybody. And we look forward to having another round, inshallah, after Ramadan.
Oh, another round.
After
Okay.
Eid, yeah, inshallah, inshallah. Thank you, Prof. Ainul.
Okay, thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi
wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Prof. Ainul, Prof. Noli, and all the panelists. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.